Hello and welcome to the All Round Coaching Podcast, episode number 31. We come to you today in the comfort of our bed because the acoustics are better and it is so much comfier.
And it's also late. It's his bedtime.
Yes, it is 11:15, but we do commit to this, or I do and I make Mel do it. But once you commit to something, just see it through. And I think probably what motivated me more was, obviously it was Emma Story-Gordon's post that my pal shared with me. Once you get past 30 episodes of a podcast, you're in that 1%. And for someone that is probably an introvert, we'll say, I think actually speaking and getting past that many episodes, I'm pretty damn proud of myself.
Yeah, but this is the last episode that we're going to do. We've got to the 1%, now we're done, okay?
Yeah, we're finished now. That's it, it's over.
We've hit that milestone.
We'll finish on a high. But no, this episode, I wanted to go through just that, and it was living through a label or defining yourself through a label. I know in the past I've probably been guilty of it a little bit.
In what sense? What label would you have been living through?
Well, it's you get that label. Obviously, I had depression. You know, the anxiety, the perfectionism's in there. A little bit of introvert, and I just believed that I had to be that person. So you're defined by that label. Or I've been told, obviously, when I got diagnosed with depression, or you don't look like someone with depression. And obviously it was hidden for quite some time anyway. Just cracking on with life, laughing and giggling away, and nobody had a fucking clue.
How did you feel when you'd been, given that label, though?
It didn't change anything for me. I didn't change anything about myself. Obviously, you're aware of it, but you could either lay down and take it and not move past it, or you could just power on through and work on it and work on yourself. And that's something I prefer to do. Like, if you're diagnosed with depression, it's not take a tablet. Everyone just imagine someone sitting in a dark room and not going anywhere or doing anything. So I didn't live through that, or I refused to, because a few people have said it. Oh, I didn't know you had that. Like, and I obviously played it off pretty well. Like, I didn't make it obvious, but at the same time, until I actually spoke about mental health, I didn't feel the need to just say, "Oh, by the way, I've got depression, I've got anxiety, and I'm an introvert." Like, what good would it do? People might see me different, or I don't know.
What other labels you've got? I mean, the aim of this podcast is obviously to not kind of point a finger at certain things, but it's to kind of give people, I suppose, more of an alternate view on those labels. Like, you can be given that label, can't you? But that doesn't mean that you have to sit in that box and accept what label you've been put on and where you're going to stay.
Yeah, I think society now, we love putting a label on something. Like, if someone's a little bit irritable, oh, they must have ADHD. Like, I'm someone, my brain cannot focus on one thing, and I will do 50 things at once, or I'm easily distracted. Like, it is in my family, and it could be hereditary, but it wouldn't make any difference to me knowing. I know how to manage myself a bit better now, regardless of that.
I think everybody at the moment, though, I've certainly been one of them, or criminal for it. You scroll on Instagram Reels and
I must have that.
Yeah. I've got ADHD. Well, I think we're all a bit self-diagnosed ADHD, or quite a lot of us are self-diagnosed ADHD, because I had a conversation with someone in the office a couple of weeks ago about the exact same thing, really. I think that they thought that they had it, because everything that they were seeing on the internet was telling them that they had it. And sometimes it can help. Like, I think personally, for me with the ADHD thing, I think because everything is we've got such short attention spans, because most of us in our generation have grown up with phones and the internet, so it's hard to actually fucking concentrate on anything because there's so much to go and look at and see. So yeah, it's absolutely no wonder that all of us got some form of attention deficit.
Yeah.
But does that mean that, I'll change the way that I work and change the way that I do things? No, not necessarily.
No, I think it can help to understand, but I don't think we need to live through that exact label or just let it define us anyway. Like, it isn't going to change as a person, and more often than not, are you going to just zap the depression, anxiety, ADHD, everything away? You're not. So it is better to manage, understand and work through it than just define yourself with it and lay down and accept it.
Yeah.
So that is my take on it. And anything that obviously I say in this podcast, it's probably just more of an opinion and reflection upon myself. Amongst everything that life has thrown at me and all the experiences, it's just my opinion and how I've managed it, and hopefully people do resonate with that as well. So yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up.
No, I think we've talked about it. Like, I can't remember how we got onto the topic of this particular podcast now. It slipped my mind, but we were obviously talking around certain. There must have been something that we'd read, looked at, seen, or come across that day or a couple of days across a few weeks ago. And I know I certainly spoke about. I don't think I've particularly been labelled with any sort of medical or mental I was going to say illness. That's not right. But anything associated in that way. But I know you mentioned perfectionism or perfectionist
Yeah.
label that you'd lived through, and I think that we got onto the fact that I'd certainly felt like I've had to live through this. Like, without blowing my own trumpet, I've always done quite well with things that I've done.
Yeah.
And people naturally expect, oh, well, Mel's really good at that, or Mel will excel at that. And I think that's almost a label in itself. And I've had to kind of, I'll put my little violin down at some point, but I've had to kind of live with that. I found it particularly hard when things haven't gone well, because most things that I do have normally landed on my feet. But I've found it harder falling from grace, because that label's kind of sat quite high up, like that perfectionism, that high expectation.
Yeah, I think it's only ourselves that when it's perfectionist, we put that label on ourselves. Like, nobody says, "Oh, you are a perfectionist." So it's the behaviours we act in ourselves,
Yeah.
and it's a standard. Because I've always said it when I was in sales. Like, once you're at the top, there is nowhere else to go, and there is that point where you do have to drop a little bit. And nothing I think is linear anyway. It's not that straight line to the top, and it's going to keep going up and up and up. Like, it is peaks and troughs. So I probably still have perfectionism a little bit, but I don't think I'm as bad. Like, I won't punish myself as much if I don't get something done. Or if the standard of work's not great, I've learned for next time to make it a little bit better or improve on it. Like, we can't. Sometimes, like, it's to the detriment. If we want perfect, often we don't do fuck all in fear of it not being perfect anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting that, isn't it? I think we've, again, just, I suppose, reflecting it back into the gym environment. I know there was a couple of sessions that when I suppose we were a bit more pals, weren't we? And I think I could probably be a little bit more myself around you, where I think I'd come in probably a little bit hot-headed because I may have had a stressful day at work, or I wasn't quite happy with what I'd done that day, and then I'd brought it into the gym session, and then I'm sure it was RDLs or something bonkers, a dead simple movement like a squat. And you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Why can't you do it right?
Aww.
And I think because in my head I was like, why?
Thanks, Mel, for anyone looking to sign up.
No. It's because you can get away with saying that when you're a little bit closer, isn't it? I needed that pep talk. But I think because I was in that mental kind of like, well, that perfectionism headspace, I was getting more, I was winding myself up something wrong.
It was a box squat, because for some reason when you tell people to squat, they don't just sit down, they back their ass up, they arch it, and it's like the bum's looking for the seat, and it is just, obviously, not to simplify a squat, but it is an up and down movement. And it blew my mind that you couldn't just sit down. So it wasn't an RDL because they are complex, but it was a box squat to get you used to squatting, because that was one of your goals, obviously, to be able to squat.
Yeah, I think you were telling me to stop duck arsing it.
Yeah. So that was it. And obviously I'd never just walk up to a client and say, what the fuck are you doing? I do educate people in better ways than just saying
no,
that.
I think we'd been to Paris at this point, so I think we were fairly kind of we were fairly close.
Yeah,
I think we
still
could
in the
get away
closet,
with
but close.
But yeah, I think that perfectionism label, or that I suppose that label of just being good at what you do, I think that's what I always kind of used to live through. But
And you're still amazing at what you do, and you always will be. It's just, you have to accept it's not always going to be, quote, perfect. And as long as you are still actioning things, you can always improve. And the quality of stuff you put out is pretty, to me, it looks perfect anyway.
yeah, I mean, I feel like this is starting to morph into the whole of the podcast, the perfectionism one, isn't it?
Just one on perfectionism. A lot of people are like that now, though, and I was the same.
Yeah.
I know I still am a little bit, but I'm not. I won't punish myself as much as you with that, and I won't slap a label on myself and say, right, this is who I am now. This is what I have to be. I'm not letting it slip.
I used to give myself that label though, for sure. Like, if I ever felt like I couldn't do something, I wouldn't do it because I felt like I was a perfectionist. So, and I almost wouldn't do something because of that.
Yeah, so exploring like how we can live outside of the labels, having things in place to help with that, a little bit of self-compassion, acceptance. So if you've got a label attached to you, i.e. perfectionism, anxiety, whichever, accept that and think of ways that you can actually work through it and improve on it. Not just thinking, well, it has to be this way, this is the only way, and that's it. Sometimes you might need a little bit of extra support, that be it from friends, professionals, or a little bit of downtime with yourself.
I think that's knowledge of it, isn't it? It's knowing what it is, why you feel that way, why your brain works that way.
Yeah.
And I think, who was I speaking to a couple of weeks ago? I was speaking to someone about I think he had low levels of autism, and I think he was getting tested.
Yeah.
And he props to him. Like he said, he doesn't necessarily want to do anything with it. He just wants to understand why his brain works the way it does.
I think that's the key thing, like understanding why your brain works that way, rather than some people, if they're diagnosed with that, they just accept fate and they won't do anything with it apart from saying, well, I've got this. And sometimes people do use things as an excuse anyway, or an escape.
Yeah, for sure.
Rather than actually solving a problem and working through it. So I do fully back that, yes, understand it and move forward and work with it. Don't define yourself with it, and don't just think, right, this is it now, that I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to kind of sit in that category, and I think it's sometimes you can tell yourself anything, can't you, if you don't want to do something. I think a lot of people do that.
Yeah, it's like, especially with the gym, like I find when people think they've got a specific injury or they're absolutely fucked and they've been diagnosed with something, and the key thing that does help with people is their exercise and nutrition. But sometimes when people have a diagnosis that they think is going to be debilitating, it actually isn't, and it's going to help them more getting in and exercising, because they'll think, well, I've been diagnosed with a condition, this means life has to stop, this has to stop. I'm not going to name specific conditions because obviously there is some that might limit you, but a lot of things you can still move forward in life and actually get somewhere. You're not just defined with that, and obviously it just makes you a little bit more individual and unique.
Yeah.
So do not just take everything lying down, and obviously, I don't know, working on yourself is like a bit of self growth. I think from how I was to where I am now, it's like a little 360 for me.
Yeah, I mean, we've touched on it briefly in the past, but it's with you and your depression. It's, I guess, you probably felt better for it, knowing why you felt, unpacking where that might have stemmed from, or why you felt in certain ways. I'm guessing obviously therapy helped massively with.
Yeah, I felt therapy didn't fix, but it helped me understand, and that was the key thing with that.
And as long as I've known you, like, which to be fair, there's been few occasions where you've gone, my brain's feeling a little bit blue today, like, but you're not put a little like sad hat on and
No, what is it? What is it I say? I have my brain sad today.
yeah, which is cute. But you've not lived out the rest of your day like that. Like you don't live out the rest of it. I barely noticed that. That's
No, I think vocalising it helped for me, because in the past I'd squash it because sometimes you can be met by, or you're always fucking down, or it can be a hindrance to people. So I think the more I squashed it, the worse it was bubbling away inside. But that's probably why it got as bad as what it did. And I think now if I just vocalise it rather than internalise it, it does help massively, and you're not just keeping it inside and letting it fester away.
yeah.
So if I have a sad brain day, then it's out there, and then I think by the day after I'm pretty sound. Or
Yeah, but you don't like. For me anyway,
I don't sit in a corner rocking back and forth thinking, why me?
Like, no, you certainly don't like. You don't get to a stage where you want me to pander for you. Like,
No.
you just like, well, this is how I'm feeling today, and then you just crack on with the rest of the day. Like, you know what I mean? You don't put that little depression hat on and go, I'm depressed today. Like, don't talk to me. Like,
I think yeah. I mean, I've never been that person, but I just sit there and think, woe me. I will power through with that. But I don't know. It is weird with depression because it is associated with that. Someone's always down, and it's not. It's literally, well, it's been more known than ever that it's the people that you least expect.
yeah.
But yeah, I think just be supportive of people, and I think understanding absolutely helped me massively, but not letting it define who I am. So hopefully this is an empowering message for everyone today.
Yeah, it's giving yourself the tools to kind of like, I suppose you're given a piece of information, aren't you? Like let's say for example the ADHD thing, where we know a few people that have had the test and it's come back that they do have ADHD. Like, then they've lived X amount of years up until that point. All it is a brand new piece of information. Like, to do with that what you choose to do with it. You either learn to cope with it and crack on, or you decide to put a little badge on and go, this is what I am. Like,
yeah, and not move forward. Like, just see it as growth. Like, things can be a little bit more difficult, because I used to find like it was hard for me to concentrate, or if I was having them quote down days, it would be harder to work, and sometimes you can just pause and come back to it. If obviously it's in a work situation, it's just not saying, fuck it, I'm done now, because I've been diagnosed with this and I'm going to quit everything and not live my life.
yeah, I mean, that's the same with anything though, isn't it? I'm not putting everyone into the same category, none whatsoever, but just understanding where your headspace is at the same time, but also not letting it limit you.
Yeah, it just makes you a little bit, a different identity. Just be someone different every day, a little bit more complex and unique.
Yeah, I mean, for example, take anxiety, which was, I mean, ADHD seems to be the trend at the moment.
It was anxiety. God damn it.
One
of mine has
you've
dropped
got anxiety
down.
now. But, again, without naming names, I know someone that had quite severe anxiety, and they got to a point where they'd actually spoken to someone about it and got sought out help, rather than going, well, this is what it is, and I'm gonna live with it, and I'm not gonna better myself. Like, they understood why they would, they almost get, obviously, panic attacks based off it. And they understood why that was, and what the body was effectively doing was, not overreacting, but I suppose thinking that they were in a situation that they weren't in a fight or flight situation, which is why the heart was pounding 10 to dozen.
Yeah, anxiety for me, I was never present. I was constantly thinking ahead, and that's what makes it worse, or made it worse for me anyway.
Yeah.
With anxiety, so in a lot of senses, quite a few things can be managed when you understand it a little bit more.
For sure, yeah, and if it's knowing what kind of, without saying again another buzzword, but what kind of what triggers you is, especially with something like anxiety or even depression or even ADHD, like any of those big ones, or even perfectionism, I guess, like what triggers you to kind of go, well, why am I feeling this way? And if you have a better, again, for me, knowledge is power. Like, if you have a better understanding, then you know how to deal with it, rather than, at least you can move forward rather than stay standing and stay stagnant.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a therapist would always say everything we are now and what we do relates back to childhood. So speak to your inner child and see what went wrong there. But no, a lot of that is. But one thing I would say is, obviously everyone's unique and we're constantly evolving. So just keep powering forward.
Yeah, I think for the most part as well, without, again, we're not doing this hard sell, but I think we've spoken to, I know Jenna was one of the previous episodes, like, we talked more on mental health, and I think she's obviously found a massive change when she started training more regularly.
It is like exercise and nutrition. People don't realise the impact and the importance it has for whatever condition, whether it's
Perfectionism.
yeah, like from mental to physical. Just getting exercise, and it's not to say go in and fucking leg press 500 kilo, but just get yourself moving, go for walks, get some resistance training in, get a little bit of cardio. Don't just think it has to be one thing. Get a mixture of exercise and eat whole foods, and you'll feel so much better for it. Like, society now, there's a lot to answer for why society is the way it is now, but it does help, and it's not. I've always thought this before I did coaching, like, I wasn't brought up in the healthiest environment, but I didn't want to go down that path, so we've all got choices, and obviously our genetics only define 3%, which, if we exercise, wipes it out anyway, so there's not really an excuse. Yeah, there might be some valid excuses, which I won't list off, but there actually isn't an excuse for people not to exercise and eat right.
Even with, I suppose, like injuries, for example, like a few people do live through those, don't they? Like, oh, I've bust my knee, or
Yeah, and
excuse
I've had
me.
a couple of clients, like one that's not with me anymore. She's fully rehabilitated and she's moving and smashing it now. And then obviously one of my guys, Barry, it was too late on the NHS for him to get his shoulder. Oh God, it was disgusting. His clavicle reattached and everything. So we rehabbed him, and now he can actually move injury free, pain free, and he's got more mobility and more strength in his shoulder.
Yeah.
So it's not just thinking, oh fuck, I'm fucked, and then
Yeah,
not doing
he could have
anything.
easily gone, well, I'm knackered now, that's it.
Yeah,
Like,
but he didn't. Like, he persevered, and he's quite a busy guy anyway. But he hasn't give up, and he's put his health and himself first. So I'm pretty proud of that.
yeah.
So if you take anything away from today, don't give up. Don't define yourself through a label. And if you do get attached with a label, just power through it, understand it, and work on it.
Yeah, and maybe don't come to Claire with some elements of perfectionism and trying to do a squat, a box squat.
Yeah, because I'll ask you what the fuck you're doing. But no, I would like to actually, with this being 31 episodes, thank the people that have come on to actually get us to 31 episodes and given us things to talk about. So if there is any topics that people want us to like chat about, our opinions, or actually get some knowledge from it, you can drop us a message on Spotify, Instagram, or just reach out and we can answer some of them questions or give you an insight on what you know or what you don't know.
Or what you want to know.
Yeah. So we will leave it there. We'll be back next week, probably not at this time, recording a podcast in bed. But yes, hope you have enjoyed this one, and any questions, like I said, just drop me a message.
Goodbye.
Bye.